200 pages or something, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
All three
Oh,
principles, tools, and
long book.
strategies. Yeah, people's lives have been transformed by it. So
It's a
thank you
thick.
for bringing that up. I appreciate
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. All right, we are re-recorded. We are recording, and we have once again the wonderful Amy Johnson with us again. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Um,
Thanks for having me.
yeah, I'm
Happy to
excited.
hang out. Yeah.
Now, I mentioned to the people that are on here, I do want this to be interactive. I want this to be where people, there's a question that just came in, and I think it'd be a great one to start with. But I want to do something very differently, not just the canned, okay, tell us a little bit about yourself and all that stuff. Amy, how long you been in this understanding for now?
About 9 years.
9 years? Are you
Mhm.
kidding? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh,
How
all
long
right.
did you think?
Like 8.5, but definitely not 9. That's crazy. No, I guess that makes sense. Looking back, I'm like, actually, I've been around it for a while too, but it just sounds like a lot of time. I don't know.
It does. I know.
So 9 years, here's my question. So instead of just saying, how did you get into and all that, how after 9 years has this still impacted you? Personally in your own life, not a teaching moment or anything, just like a legitimate impactful thing that's happened in 9 years for you.
It's funny, like when you say that, the first thing that comes to mind, like after 9 years has this impacted you? The first thing that kind of came to mind was like, it impacts me more now than it ever did in the beginning. And it's funny, but I don't know, it's funny because like I can for sure remember the first year where so much of this was brand new. And I felt like everywhere I turned, I was like, whoa, and then this, and that means this about that, like like, oh, and this feeling's going to change too. And oh, this thing I was believing, that's a thought also. And all of that was popping a lot. And I'm making the time up, but the first 6 months, first year, it felt really like, whoa, there's something shifting. And it was really fun and exciting and all of that stuff. And I was such a student and just running around, just, soaking it in wherever I could. But I don't know. Then it just feels like it got kind of quiet in a sense. And that the student in me kind of like, okay, I don't need to soak this in and listen to it all the time. And it really just the whole thing of living your life. But of course I'm talking about it constantly because I share it and I always have, but I don't know, the whole getting more from it just totally went away, and it's still not really a thing. But what's really cool is like, this is where it feels like it continues to just unravel, meaning, see if I can like explain this well or think of a good example. I think it's probably, I'm sure I'm not the only one to say this, but it's sort of like seeing something about how kind of in the moment, on the spot, made up our experience of life is. There have been 29.5 billion different depths of seeing that. Like at first it's like, oh, wait, everything I think isn't the truth. And then it's like, oh, wait, like, no, everything I think isn't the truth. And like, and I can't even describe it in words how much like deeper and more real that's become. But the funny part is it's not like, oh, wow, I had an insight. It's just like, oh yeah, there again, it just feels so much more commonplace, but it just feels like I'm just sinking down into a hole, not a good kind of hole, deeper and deeper and deeper. That makes any sense. So where I think how it's gone over 9 years for me personally is really just like, wow, there is such a mystery behind all this. And our minds are so sure and they're so vivid and there's so much detail and nuance. And this, he said this and she said that and all of that. But there's a way in which that sort of just looks fuzzier now. Like, oh yeah, that's the story, but like, that's just the story. And that story has gone from like here, like a helmet on my head that I couldn't escape from, that I didn't even know I was wearing, to a helmet that got a little bit bigger, to a really big helmet, to a helmet that a lot of times is now like sitting on the table next to me, to a helmet that sometimes I don't even see anywhere, which is really pretty awesome and pretty huge if you think about it.
That while you're talking, that's kind of how I see it too. I've never had someone say it the way you just said it. I never really thought about it too deep, but that's exactly where it's at, where it's impacted me more now, but I think less of it now than I did back then,
Yeah.
which seems like counterintuitive, but it, the impact, I think, in the same way that you're talking, is the principles really meant a lot now. Back then when I got it and I had to figure it out, and like you said, everything was a thought. And now the idea of the principles is just another thought as well. Like that's something I don't have to figure out either anymore. And so it's a softer living. I don't know
Mhm.
if that's the way to put it, but yeah, I'm thinking less of the principles. And because of that, I kind of see it a lot. I just see it happening. It's not oh, it's happening. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
there it goes again.
Yeah, and the whole thing about the principles, and I know I think I see this here as well in this group and with you, it's like, and I hate to say it like this, I don't mean to make it sound like there's a way it goes, like there's a path or this is how it goes for everyone. Of course there isn't. But there is a thing. I know when I first found it too, like, oh my gosh, this is so different and it's so new and everyone needs to know this and nobody knows this. And, and the emphasis was on the this, as if there was this thing there. And over time, I think and I've seen this in others as well, the emphasis just gets off the this. Like, I don't even know what the heck this is, but hey, there is a softer, easier, nicer way to live. And I think lots of people throughout the ages have seen this, whatever this is, and but it's not really about the this anymore.
Yeah, it's my last video, that's kind of what the idea was. It's like the scaffolding when you're building a bridge. Like when you see the bridge built, you're like, how do they do that whole bridge? But there's a scaffolding that people have that holds the bridge up. And once the bridge is up, they take the scaffolding off and it looks magical. And
Yeah.
to me, the principles, it was a scaffolding. I saw it being built, and then I see how my experience is happening, and then the principles, the scaffolding kind of went away. And now I
Yeah.
see the experience, and I'm going, whoa! And it's magical for people because they go, how do you understand experience so well? How do you know? How do you get to go share at a recovery center when you're not a therapist or when you're not this? It's kind of like, well, once you see it, you don't actually, not that you don't need the principles, but the principles themselves were the bridge to get me closer to my experience. The best thing that I've at least found.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. Me too. It was super, just graspable and tangible as much as it is. And of course, people say it's not in the big picture of things. But, as far as spiritual things go, I think it's something it just lands with people. But I love that. I love that metaphor. Yeah. Then the scaffolding and the this and the structure and all that, it just doesn't matter so much anymore. And I think that too, like you said about how do you share it with all these people and just talk about it and stuff. I mean, it's an amazing thing and we've all experienced it in our own way to where it just is, again, this is super cliche, but it's also true. Like it's just how you see life. So there's no thing to share. There's no, here's how you do it. And that, like, I'm training a new group of coaches now. We started a month ago and we have about 5 months together left. And it's the hardest thing to really kind of describe because everybody comes in like, what do I do? How do I do it? Even though they know better, that's of course where a mind goes,
Yeah.
and so it's like, well, we can talk about around that a little bit to satisfy you, but also know that where we talk about, like, here's, I don't know, like any this, any that, the thing is not really where it's at. Really where it's at is just beginning to live this to where someone comes up to you and says anything that they're up against, you're just naturally right away going to see it in a way that's different than
Yeah.
you would have seen it before. And from that, you just open your mouth and stuff comes out. Like, it truly is the most normal, natural, effortless kind of thing in the world, the more we see it, which is so fun. I mean, that's amazing that you can just show up and have a conversation and it impacts people.
That's absolutely brilliant, and it's true. That's the one thing, because thought is the common denominator. It always ends up, no matter what they're talking about, no matter what the content, no, this is different, Amir. I remember someone in my recovery group last week said, "Yeah, but you know, uh, what about if you're in a good mood? Is that thought too? I said, yeah, it is. And you go, well, um, what about if you're in a good mood and you want to be in a better mood? That's is that a problem? I said, well, it's not necessarily a problem, but do you think it's thought? She's like, no, it's not a thought because I'm happy. So what did she say? I'm happy, so it can't be just my thinking or something. I said, well, if you want to get to a better mood, what do you think you're doing with yourself when you want to get to a better mood? She goes, well, I have a lot of judgment. I'm happy now, but I could always be happier. And then she went, oh yeah, that's thought too.
Mm.
Like no matter what you do, it's like the only thing that I've seen that is like shooting practice, like your target is always the same. No matter what you're shooting, it's the same thing. You'll always, like if you're looking at the target, you go, oh, you shot the same thing again. You're talking about thought. It's
Yeah.
100% of the time. It's so fascinating. Speaking of our first question then, um, Eric on our Facebook group said, he would love to hear how to move through. He wants to know about deep trauma that's happened over the years. I mean, again, this is exactly what we're talking about, but that continues to show up due to its intense nature over the years. I have a friend I would like to share anything with if possible. So he has somebody that's going through deep trauma and it's been happening for a long time. Can this understanding help with deep trauma?
I feel like I've been talking about this a lot lately because it is such a, I don't know, it's one of those things that, like we're saying, just of course looks like an exception, looks different. And it's very easy for people to hear it as, I think the thing with trauma is it's traumatic and it needs to be acknowledged and validated for people sometimes in order for them to just kind of feel okay in a moment, right? And this whole understanding has this weird way, like a mind will just hear this and say, oh, you're not validating my experience, which is not at all what this understanding points to. Completely validate an experience because we see that it's experience. We see that it's not you, that it's not lodged in you somewhere just waiting to attack. Like it's experience. So I think with someone has a huge trauma years ago, let's just say the effects of that, so that does something to their psychology, right? It does something to their body, it does something in their psychology. Their mind is now on high alert all the time. They're feeling anxiety more often, right? All of this stuff is at the level of form. It's all at the level of machinery. Doesn't mean it's not real, doesn't mean it's not incredibly uncomfortable and painful, or that we should look away from it, but it just in our, we all know enough to kind of have a conversation at this level. It's all happening at the level of form. So yes, this trauma thing happened, anxiety shows up. I think where people get really kind of confused, where it looks so scary and hard and deep and different and confusing, is that we keep looking at the trauma piece of it. Oh, but this thing happened, but this really happened, and it happened 20 years ago. And then look, ever since the day that happened, I feel anxiety all the time. So our mind, it's just the way a mind works. It's just a linear line. It wants to trace back to when this feeling started, right? So it keeps looking back at this old trauma that's no longer a thing, but a concept in our heads at this point. What's a thing is what's coming to life for us moment to moment to moment right now. So yeah, if you feel tons of anxiety, you may have had a trauma 20 years ago, you may have never had any trauma. You're really on equal footing. What you're feeling right now in this moment is experience moving through you right now in this moment. And again, I'll just say it again. I'm going to say it 100,000 times. Like that doesn't mean that your trauma doesn't matter or it didn't happen or any of that. Right now, like life happens right now. There's only now. There's only now. There's the past when we jump in our head and think about things. There's the future when we jump in our heads and think about things, which we do all the time. But there's truly only now. So I think does that make sense? Like this whole thing of
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
trauma, it gives us this place our mind keeps going back to and tying everything to that. And it just makes it complicated. And it has us feeling like a prisoner to something that's over. But if you can see, yes, trauma happens. It sucks. I hate that it happens for people. Anxiety happens. Not fun. But it's still happening moment to moment to moment. And then it's washing away. And the more we can see that, and we're not tying it back to some old thing, the more it washes. It truly does.
Yeah, that's no, absolutely brilliant. And I remember it's a tough one because people hold on to that. And, you know, it is something that was extremely painful and it was something that was unique to them, that experience. And I remember in one of my recovery groups, I asked this person that came in, this lady, I said, if you're not thinking about the traumatic event, are you still traumatized? And she had a tough, like, it almost like was like, I find that offensive because now you're trivial. And I was like, no, no, no. I want you to hear the question. If you're not thinking about the traumatic event, are you traumatized? She came back in the next group and said, I'm not. If I'm not thinking about it, I'm not traumatized.
Yeah.
And she just said, thank you. And it was like, we didn't have to go too deep into it. We didn't have to figure out, well, why do you think? She got it. She
Yeah.
got it. And she noticed that when she's traumatized, she has that traumatic thinking until she doesn't. So it I like that. And one of the things I think that I like about this understanding is instead of it saying, and I say this to my recovery group, like in Spanish, we say, you say tango hambre means I have a hunger. And the minute you eat, you don't have a hunger. In English, we say I am hungry. It's who you are. It's you. I am, or I am thirsty. In Spanish, it's I have a thirst. In the same respect, it's not I am traumatized as I have a traumatic experience. I had. So
Yeah.
I think wording is incredibly important in this aspect because we already have it in our verbiage that we say I have instead of I am, you know, or I am instead of I have, which is kind of rather fascinating.
It is. And if if you get really crazy into non-dualism, then you start talking like a robot that makes absolutely no sense. And you say something like, the experience of thirst exists. There's no, so don't get crazy with it to where you can't be a normal human being and have a conversation. But that's like I get your point, it's like,
Yeah.
it's interesting how we see it at different levels like that.
So, you know, I had to take my jacket off because you did bring up non-duality. That is my traumatic experience with non-duality. So my question to you real quick is, what's your opinion with, I mean, what is your opinion with other ideas, philosophies, and things like that in comparison or retrospect or in comparison to the principles, if there even is a comparison? I think to me, non-duality is a philosophy and I really like it, but that's one of the things I noticed what you said, Amy. And I don't want to get too deep into this, but the language starts changing. It's like what we're doing right now, we're having a conversation. And I even get annoyed with three principles conversations when that gets too deep. Like I got into the principles so I can have normal conversations. Um, what's your opinion about the direction some people are going, even in our community, with the to non-duality? Do you have an opinion?
I don't really care. I don't think it's any different. I honestly, I can't understand why it matters, why everybody's picking a camp and talking about it. I think it's exactly the same. It's just like you said, it's just different language. I mean, I suppose if we really looked at it, you could say it's not the same in some ways, but I don't, um, I don't really call myself a 3P person or think of myself like
Right.
that. It just happens to be the thing that, that I first took in that really kind of was immediately helpful. Um, I mean, I listen to some non-dualism stuff too, and I think it's the same conversation. I really do. Just my personal preference and my taste. For me, it's very heady. It's kind of just
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
abstract. Like it just don't. It's not my favorite to listen to, but I think it's the absolute truth, and I think the three principles is the absolute truth, the essence of it,
Sure.
and I think Christianity and Buddhism and all of that is the absolute truth. So yeah,
Got
who,
it.
who
Yeah.
cares about the package?
Yeah, I agree. Exactly. I love it. That's brilliant. Someone said, what about memories? Lynn is saying, I'm not sure we can erase memories. We can have a memory of a traumatic event right here and now in this moment.
Yeah.
How can we feel okay when that happens?
Yeah. I mean, I think again, it's like seeing like what that really is. We can add more words around it and we can say this is a memory of a traumatic event that happened to me back in this on this date. And then it feels like something big and personal and like it's lodged in us somewhere. But we could also describe that exact same thing as saying, oh, I'm thinking. What's a memory? It's a thought. It's energy moving through you. It's not special. It's not different. And what it's about, a thought about something, the about part, first of all, it's not really about what it's about. That's just the storyline our mind makes up to make it interesting. But the about doesn't make it any different. When we have a thought about how much we love our child versus what we're going to eat for lunch versus what's happening to the planet versus anything, they're all thought. They're all exactly the same. They just happen to have a different storyline attached to them.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I had one of my clients said, yeah, but if I tell you not to think of an elephant, you're going to be, you're going to think of an elephant. So like, of course, that can have an issue, especially if it's a traumatic event. And I said, well, here's the difference. If you tell me to think of an elephant and I go, oh yeah, don't think of an elephant. And I go, oh yeah, I'm thinking of an elephant versus don't think of an elephant. And I go, oh my God, I'm thinking about elephants again. Why am I thinking about elephants? I hate elephants. Same thing. It's the same
Yeah.
thing. It's elephants. One of them is elephants, and the other one is elephants plus what you said, which is brilliant. Elephants, which causes me to get triggered, which is not just a memory, because if it was a memory, I wouldn't be triggered by the word elephants. And next thing you know, elephants has a lot more weight on it than the word elephant.
And even, yeah, and even then, who cares? Like, I
Yeah,
know,
I know, I agree.
but even then, it's like, okay, so you get all worked up about elephants and you get triggered and you have all this stuff. You're still fine.
Yes.
That's the thing. Like, you're still fine. You're having like some fireworks go off in your head. You are fine. It
Yeah.
doesn't actually mean anything. So that's where this gets really good, right? It's like we can think about anything. I mean, again, I'm not saying go do this, but we could go think about the worst thing that ever happened to us. We all could, and we would be okay. We might not like that experience. Our body would give off all kinds of energy and adrenaline, and we'd feel all kinds of stuff, which is also safe.
I
Which is
love that.
also our body knows how to handle it. That's why, I mean, we are not afraid of thought or feeling or emotion or anything. Like, we go to scary movies, for Pete's sake. We ride roller coasters. We read suspenseful books. The same person that loves mystery novels will say, oh, I hate uncertainty. No, you don't. You love uncertainty.
Right.
You love uncertainty.
Yeah.
You read mystery novels, but you don't like it when your mind is saying that it threatens you, that it means something about you. That's where we get to just wipe the slate clear and say it's all thought. None of it means a darn thing about any of us. It doesn't mean anything about us, and it doesn't actually impact our safety or our okayness or any of that.
I this is an awesome conversation. And again, someone asked me, do you ever get triggered? I go all the time. And they go, what do you do? I go, I get triggered. Like, that's the thing. Once you actually know you can't generally get harmed by a trigger, if it looks like it can harm you, yes, it would make sense to go do drugs because you're triggered, or leave your wife because you're triggered if you think that's the direction. But if you go, like you said, it was brilliant. I manufacture getting triggered all the time by watching horror movies or whatever, right? Reading books or listening to George Pransky when he's talking, but whatever. I mean, I get triggered all the time. And the thing is, it's once you go, oh, so a trigger is just another thought. And again, it almost, do you ever feel like you're trivializing it though? Or are we? I mean, like when you say, oh, I know even a trigger is just like, who cares? But if someone comes to you and says, what do you mean, who cares? I get triggered to do heroin. How can you just say, who cares? You're oversimplifying my disease, my
No.
alcoholism.
No, because we're complicating it. Even when we're oversimplifying it, we're complicating it. It is that
Yeah.
simple. I mean, it just is. I think where it feels like we're oversimplifying it, or, whatever, is when we don't feel compassion for the human experience.
Yeah.
Like we can all feel compassion for every bit of human experience. And we all know when we're feeling it, we have lots of ideas. We have lots of opinions about that. We love it. We hate it. We know what that feels like. But that doesn't make it more complicated than it truly is. It's not complicated, and it's not unsafe the way it feels. The trigger thing is interesting. I mean, if we really look at that, even, how can anything really trigger us? I think what we call a trigger is, again, there's not a true trigger. That's a psychological concept. That's a theory. It's a theory that our mind makes up. But we have a linear mind, and it feels stuff, and then it wants to give an explanation or an excuse for what it feels. But the feeling was there. The thing didn't create the feeling. So, because how can, if you say, oh, my phone, I got the new iPhone 11, my iPhone 11, it triggers me. I feel so happy. I love this thing. How can this make a feeling happen in me? Can't. How can this make a thought happen? It can't. Nothing can actually trigger us. That's just the way our mind sees it when our mind puts it on this linear timeline. Truly, this is not it either, but this is just the way I'm going to say it. Like, if we really strip away concepts, ideas, identities, all that stuff, we're just experiencing these fluctuations of energy. We're just feeling energy move through us. And then we have a mind that tries like crazy to spin it into a story that makes sense. And so part of the mind's story is that you triggered me. This made me feel that way. Like, we're all okay saying, oh no, life is inside out. It's not outside in. Like, we've seen that much. But then it still looks like there are triggers or things, which is outside in. There's no such thing as a trigger. There's just us feeling life, and then a mind telling stories about it, which I think is really cool to see. Because, again, why does it matter? It matters in part. I mean, ultimately, it doesn't really matter, but it matters as far as our experience goes, because when it looks like there is stuff that can trigger us and make us feel some way, right away, our world gets smaller. Right away, we're into our conceptual heads where I want more of this feeling. I want less of that feeling. I need to approach this. I need to avoid that right away. No, that's okay. We're humans. We live there. But right, you see what I mean? Like, when it looks like they're triggers, right away, we're less free. By definition, we're less free than we were before there were triggers.
I love that. And people, and we have a lot of cool things that I want to read, but real quick, people say, well, it doesn't, like, there's some things, again, like PTSD, those triggers are real. And I remember I was working with a client who came back from Iraq 4 times, and we're by the train station. He told me, look, I just want to let you know, the train comes every 40 minutes. I may go under the table or I may run away, so don't get scared. Like, I'll be okay. And I said, fine. Well, me and him started shooting the shit, and we're laughing. And he looked at his watch and went, oh my God. I'm like, what? He goes, the train already passed. And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, I forgot to get triggered. He was having such a good time. See, what he
Yeah.
used to do is go, okay, I know in 40 minutes the train's coming and I got to get myself prepared. So he would prepare for, even sometimes, for his triggers. And he had this huge insight. And again, it goes back to that, because everyone told him, you're stuck with this. You're always going to get triggered because you went to Iraq 4 times. So he already has it built into a system that's just who he is now. That's just where he's at. And when he forgot to get triggered, he had this like, oh my God. Now he came back to me and said, I still get triggered, Amir. It just matters less that I do. That is complete freedom. That to me is complete freedom.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is what maybe you're pointing to. That's what at least I've seen.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, and really seeing what that trigger is, like, really his mind just forgot to tell him how to feel.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Right.
That's it.
And then he didn't jump in and then validate the feeling that he was supposed to feel because his thought told him that that's what you're supposed to feel. Yeah. If you forget to do that, just kind of doesn't do much.
He's not afraid of trains. I love working with people with phobias, or people who say, like, oh, I'm afraid to fly, for example. You're not afraid to fly. You're not afraid of a spider. You're not afraid of the thing, to drive over a bridge. You're afraid of your own thinking. Like, that's all it is. Because half the time the people who are saying like, oh, I'm afraid to fly and I have a flight booked for next Wednesday, it's like you're sitting on a chair at your house right now. You're not afraid to fly. Your mind
Yeah.
is telling you that this is a scary thing. I mean, I don't know. I just love it because it's such a cool, just kind of like your story, it's such a cool way to see, oh, it's not really happening the way my mind tells me it's
Yeah.
happening.
No, it's brilliant. Okay, so let's see. Going back to the trauma point, I think many would like to experience less triggering in the moment. They would like the recurring effects of trauma in daily life to be diminished, so they are less triggered, less on edge, less on defensive. Can you discuss this?
Yeah. I mean, again, if we take, you can keep trauma in it, you can take trauma out. It's the same conversation. When we when we look beneath the surface of what we're really feeling, we become less afraid of it. When we have, I had tons of anxiety for years. When we really look at what anxiety is, and we're not looking at, oh, I have a panic attack, I have this feeling, I have this fear, that's all concept about it. We really look at what happens. It's energy moving through your body. And then it's your mind talking about stuff. That's it.
That's it. Yeah.
It's energy moving through your body, and it's your mind talking about stuff when you read a scary book, when you read a suspenseful book. You love that. It's energy moving through your body, and it's your mind talking about stuff when you have a panic attack. You don't love that. Same experience, different label, different way of seeing it, different story about it. That's it. And the story is not about what's actually happening. The story in our heads, I mean, it's just thinking that we attach to it, saying, oh, this is okay to happen here, but it's not okay to happen there. This isn't about me. This is about me. Well, none of that is true either. That's just thought. So, I mean, really, I don't know. I love this in the last year or so. And I'm not going into it in some great, mysterious depth or anything. I don't have any insight into it that's better than anyone else can have. But like, just to go beyond, like, what is a feeling? What is a feeling? Because if we aren't afraid of our feelings, that alone can change the world. Like, no one has a problem that is going to sustain over time if you aren't afraid of feelings. So let's say you've had trauma, you have recurring anxiety, recurring triggers, which is just recurring thought, right? Recurring feeling. It shows up over and over again. If you could see that thought, that feeling in a way to where it looked like it was happening to someone else, or you were watching it in a movie or hearing someone else's story, if it just looked safer to you, everything would change. Like, it's not going to stay around in that same way. It's not possible. It stays around and ramps up and feels like it's haunting us because we keep showering it with so much attention and fear. When we just see it for what it is, it just doesn't work. That just doesn't happen that way. So to just keep getting curious about, what is this really? I know how it feels and how it looks to us and all that, but to look at what's really going on. My body's just feeling energy and my mind's talking about it.
Yeah. Like, period. Done.
Period.
Like,
That's
have a
it.
nice day, everyone.
Yeah.
Literally. Yeah, literally.
And it's okay that you hate it, and it's okay that it scares you, and it's okay that you want to go on. So it's not, again, not to say you should see it this way or it shouldn't be a big deal. You feel it how you feel it, but that's what it is. But let's feel it how we feel it, but really look at what it is.
Yeah. And then we have, okay. Does anyone want to get on and have a question that you'd like Amy to answer? If anyone wants to jump on. And while we're waiting for that, if you want to raise your hand, I'm going to read what Miriam says. She says, in adult children of alcoholic and dysfunctional families, we're going into the trauma. I only have a few months of experience in this program. Can you help me understand 3P in the context of how recovery things we can change? So,
In the context, of how they think we can change.
Yeah, hi.
oh, hey,
Oh,
there you go.
Hi.
There you go. Hi, Miriam.
Yeah, in terms of like how 12 steps sees the recovery process or the healing, which I gather in 3P, we're all okay. So I'm quite new to the easy understanding of this, or easier, really, a few days into this. Although I've read a lot, I just couldn't hold on to them. those thoughts.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, because I just went back to a recovery program hoping that it would fix me. And so I'm curious how this would fit in.
How so how it looks like change happens from the 3P perspective.
Yeah.
I
don't even know if this is the question.
Yeah.
I think what I'm saying is I just love to find a point of integration, or if it's separate, but
yeah,
it's confusing. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Well, I can't say much about 12 steps because I just don't know much about them. And I don't want to speak as a 3P mouthpiece because I'm not, but I'll just tell you how I see it. I've been very influenced by 3P. So as far as that goes, like the way I see change happening is that, like you said, we are okay always. We have everything we need. We are lived by life and informed by life moment to moment to moment. That doesn't mean right now today you know what to do 10 years from now, but you don't need that right now today. Right now today you know what to do in this moment, right? So like life's kind of informing us and moving through us in each and every moment. And that's never ever not the case. And on top of that, in a sense, in addition to that, at the same time, we're always thinking. And our mind, is all about, usually the story in our mind is all about us. It's all about how we stack up and how we compare and what we should do and what we need. And when we kind of lose touch, in a sense, or lose sight of that bigger guidance within us, and we get really caught up in what we need to be okay, life gets very messy. That's the root of all habits, all addictions, as far as I can see, right? It's kind of losing touch with who we really are and getting really caught up in this needy story that every one of us has in our heads. All of us do. And as that needy story starts to be seen for what it is, a needy story, and then we fall back into touch with the fact that we're actually okay. We kind of come back to this moment and we see that we have what we need and nothing out there, as much as it feels like it gives us pleasure or relief or whatever, which it absolutely does for a short time. That's not really where it's at. So that's kind of the big, like this, the more, it's so hard to make that a thing we can wrap our heads around, but the more we come back to who we are and see what's in the way more clearly, the less we even want to add anything, the less impact adding things like addictions and habits even has. From what I don't know. So yeah, there are all kinds of other things out there that tell us steps that I think for the most part are trying to point us back to what I just said.
Yes.
But we get lost in the steps very easily because the steps are front and center, unfortunately, a lot of times, rather than the point, which is what I was trying to share.
Yeah.
That make any sense?
Yeah. And I think what you said is correct, that it's all about understanding who we really are, which is, we are a spiritual solution to whatever. Like that's where they're leading. But boy, is it ever convoluted. This is long. This is like, I've been in another 12-step program. This one is very, very complex. Like it just a lot of digging and work. And so I'm looking for, I'm just looking for, how else can I look at this?
Yeah.
What else is possible? And it's hard because people will tell you, well, I have this experience, and I don't want to push them away and just say, well, it's all you're thinking. And also, this is too new for me to say a damn word, but thank you.
Yeah, I mean, see it for yourself first, for sure, because it always feels like that in the beginning. You'll know when it's time to share it, but yeah, it's just interesting. It's really interesting to kind of look at, wow, what is so complicated about it? It's like Amir said, that he asked the woman with the trauma before, like, if you aren't thinking about your trauma, where is it?
Yes.
That to me is the essence of it. And that's what you're sort of seeing. Like, why do all this digging? And the thing is, like, it's not that we're anti-digging. I don't care if you dig or not. if it occurs to you in real time in a moment that this is a thing to look at. But to start by saying, okay, here's what we do here. We dig into this and we try to resolve that and we bring up this. And every Tuesday we're going to talk about this. Makes absolutely no common sense to most of us. It
I
just
mean,
doesn't.
I'm looking for my inner child, you know, big time. Where does she
Yeah.
go? And I am bringing up stuff that thinking, well, this is the path. This will be, you know, it's helped me before. It might help me now. Anyway, this is great. So everything happened at the same in convergence, right? So I'm
Yeah.
really excited to be informing one with the other and seeing where it goes.
That's awesome. And you'll see, you'll do what makes sense. And maybe it's a couple things at once. And then you'll
Yeah.
see something will have more oomph for you than something else. And it's all good. Again, it's just unfolding moment to moment.
It's good. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Great dialogue. We have Miss Lynn has a question. Can you speak to addictions? I believe my mother is an alcoholic. She drinks every day and causes a huge amount of conflict in our family. My brother and her have not spoken for about 4 years due to a massive fight, all fueled by alcohol. It would be great to hear more about alcoholics and the effects of it on family.
Well, I think you're sharing, Lynn, the effects of it on family. I don't know. I'm not sure like what's helpful to hear in that. I mean, we know it's not great for families or for people who are doing it. And I think also like, it like we're doing whatever we see to do to kind of help ourselves feel a little bit closer to home. Now, clearly a person who's drinking all the time and creating conflict and not having relationships with their family isn't feeling all that close to home. But in her mind, I would be willing to bet, because I think this is just how all minds work, she feels better drinking than not, or else she wouldn't. So that's the thing, and I don't know how we change that for someone, but to help someone see that if and when they want to be in that conversation with you and they want to look in that direction.
I just wanted to say that every time we try to have that kind of conversation with her, but try to intervene in some way, like even that book that Christian McNeil and Barb Smith just wrote, this amazing book on addiction, or on alcohol in particular, I think. I'd love to be able to send that book to her. But if I did that, I would be like my brother, probably not be spoken to for the next 10 years or whatever. It's a tough one.
Yeah. And I think just to think of it too, like it's obviously, it gets very muddied in our mind when it's our family and all in our self, but like just to kind of best you can step outside of that and see, how in general, what do people respond to? And there's no guarantees in any of this, but don't hear it as an across the board strategy, but it's like, in general, yes, someone who's drinking every single day and creating all this friction, they know exactly what they're doing. They're already very unhappy. Someone coming to them saying, hey, read this so you can change. Now, like you're obviously coming at it from love, but they're very likely to not hear that. So you just try to best you can, like think, what has the best shot of getting through, knowing that none of it's guaranteed. And I think sometimes just saying to a person, I love you and I want you to be happy. And if you're open to it, this might be helpful. And if not, sorry, I'm just trying because I love you. I don't know, however that goes, but it's tough because, the people who kind of we look at and we think, man, they really need to change. They're also not always all that open because they have a lot of thinking in the way about the whole thing.
Yeah. You can be very defensive.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. A quick story. I asked my recovery group what's the best lessons they've learned from the principles and the videos I showed and the books I sent out. And a couple people raised their hand and said, this is the only group I forget that I'm an alcoholic for a couple hours. In other words, it wasn't the principles. It was that we would have a great time. And when people get a little gap of like how feeling human feels, they want some of that. So when we keep telling people, here's a book because you're an alcoholic, here's this, I'm going to make you feel better, you're actually promulgating the idea that there's somewhere wrong and I'm going to show them how to get better. The truth of the matter is people just want to feel human. Yeah. Whatever that looks like. It doesn't mean, you know, it's not the principles, it's that. Like, that's why I love Sydney Banks. Like, when you listen to him, you just drop all the beliefs about yourself. When you listen to people in our community, it's not the principles that helps me. It's that when I speak with Amy about this stuff, I go, oh, I'd rather grab a cup of coffee with her after this conversation than go find out about my psychology. Like, that's what, if you've done that with the principles, then you're 99% better than most people that are teaching it. If after the end of your conversation, they leave and say, I don't even want to talk about the principles, I want to go grab a coffee, or I want to go on a walk with my child, you've done your job. Yeah.
Otherwise, we're just getting people excited about a framework, which is great. It's a great framework, but you're right. It's a very, very different thing. It's very different. Yeah. Get excited about a framework versus feel at home in their lives for a minute. Just feel like a normal human being for a minute.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Let's see. Anyone else want to jump on? We have 14 minutes left. Anyone else want to jump in for a minute and say anything? No. Oh, Arthur says yes in capital letters. This is important.
Whoa.
All right, let's do it.
I'm ready.
Mr. Arthur.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So I have a question. The question is really this. Why is it that I have all these videos that I can share, help people with in my head, and just before I make the recording, I hesitate and stop? The thing is, I've done it before. I was introduced to the principles like 5 years ago and spoke a lot with Ankush, was my coach, and so now I think I can't even explain the principles anymore. But my stress is gone, and never angry anymore and everything. But there is something I have inside, like a light inside. And just before I enter a small video that I can serve on my Facebook or send to someone, the story is gone, and I hesitate.
I'm curious just what your theory is on that, if you have one. Like, don't make one up, but like, if just in the moment, like what do you think's going on potentially without having to be right?
Potentially is like going on is like, do I want the feedback that comes back? Do I want to continue? Yes, like I don't know. It could potentially be really good.
But it could potentially be really bad. Is that what you think you're?
No. Not be really bad, but there is just something that, like when I have this really clear moments, I have this either a speech. I'm a leader at work, and it goes really fine, so I can really make a speech to some leaders that lead through heart, that doesn't drop the techniques, and in some forums at work, and really just go on and look, here's my thought on this, and I don't do it. Mm-hmm. And my coach, which I spoke to just before this call, actually, she's also a 3 Principles Understanding coach. She had challenged me on make a video, and I'll make one, but that's to raise some funds. But I can do it just to do it, but there is something that stops me, and I cannot get my head around it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, but I think it's fun. I think it's interesting to just sort of it's hard when it's us sometimes and we want to get our head around it. Like you want to know what's behind this, and you don't like this, it sounds like, right? Like I just wonder if that shifted a little, if you could just play with like that shifting a little bit. Like she said, like, you know, maybe just do a video and then see what you learn. Not because it's better to do a video than not. Maybe it's better to not do video. Maybe this is all wisdom saying you are not meant to do video. Who the heck knows? But I think the less we have on it, and the more we're just kind of curious and open to any of it being okay, less we need it to go any certain way, that's when we really start seeing things a lot. So who cares if you never make a video? Maybe video is just not the thing for you. The only way that would ever affect you in any negative way is if your mind starts telling you that it's a problem that you can't make videos. Otherwise, you're just like 99% of the universe who's never going to make a video in their life. Who cares? You know, so there's that. There's like kind of seeing, oh, wow, this means nothing. And then that kind of keeps backing you off of it in a sense in your head, you know, to where I think that's where we start seeing things like, oh, here's what's going on. But when we want it to go a certain way, it's harder to see.
Yeah, it really is, because I remember the first year I was introduced to the principles, I made a bunch of videos. And now that I kind of get the understanding, I just, well, it's okay if I make it or not. So maybe I should just care a little bit more, not about myself, but just do it.
You could do that. You could say, hey, I'm going to make a video every day this week, no matter how I feel. It's just a feeling. Feeling will be there, but I'm going to do it. And again, not because video's good, not because you should be making video, but I bet it'll be interesting and informative in some way. And if it's not, then fine. If it's not, that's okay too, you know?
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I was a little bit more clear now.
It's hard. It's hard when we want, you know, like even when you just want clarity. That sounds like so innocent. Like of course everybody wants clarity. Well, no, like even wanting clarity around this is thinking like I should figure it out, or you know, like so it's so hard to put into words sometimes. But it's like, what if we just said yes to everything that moved through us? On lack of clarity, uncertainty, not being able to make a video, like just say yes to all of it. Invite it all in. And ironically, again, this isn't a strategy for clarity, but ironically, like the more we just say yes to all of it, we just start, you know, things get clearer in some ways.
And just to, oh, sorry. You good, Arthur?
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say
Yes?
some of the best teaching moments I've had in my recovery group when I showed up unclear. And they went, wow, it's good to have a human person telling us today, I'm in my head today. I don't know what I'm going to share. I'm actually at a loss for words, but I'm going to do the best I can. And they go, wow, he's part of the human race. So we make up what we think it should look like for others to get clarity. We think we need to show up a certain way. The truth of the matter is, like, the best gift that I've ever been able to give is me showing up in real time, whatever that looks like. Like I try that on for size all the time now.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I think, and just starting to kind of be like, love, I don't know why. I don't know what's going on. I sit down to make a video and it just doesn't go anywhere. I don't know. I don't know what that is. Like there's this magic and I don't know. And little kids live in it all the time and they love it there. And we get old and we start to not like it anymore. But it's just a thought, like just to be in, and I don't know. It's so cool. It's so informative. And then we just, you know, I don't know. We're just in life. We don't have to know. That's the thing we keep seeing too, over and over again by that. It's like, we don't have to have anything figured out. We can be uncertain forever and we're still lived in life. We're still all kinds of stuff still happening.
and for some of you guys that don't know, behind the scenes, me and Amy will make a video and we'll be like, should we start it now? Should we not? When we get it off, and we'll be like, you think that was good? And we're like, I think so. All right, we'll see you tomorrow. And it that's what's funny is I still feel insecure. I'm like, we're going to do an event which I want to talk about, and your program that you're doing again, which is amazing. I'm in my head about the program in May.
Yeah.
So what though? I can't wait. It's like that. It's not like I'm going to call you and say, what should I do about that? You'll be like, be in your head while you're on stage. Okay.
Yeah. Get on the plane and who cares what your head's doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then that's the extent of our conversations now. That's what I love about this. It's not trying to get us somewhere else to the next level to this. It's like, that's where you're at. Grab a ticket and get on a plane. Like, that's it. That's how much freedom else do you need if that's what we get out of this?
Yeah, I know. That's the best. If everything's okay, if it doesn't matter what we feel, because it doesn't really stop us anyway, unless we think it does. Like, it doesn't dictate your life. It's just a feeling. It's just energy moving through your body and then your mind talking some story. If that's the worst it gets, which it is, then hey, we've got it made.
We got it made, right? And the only time it gets bad is we have a feeling and we give it a name, and then we have to talk about what we've named it and where it came from. But before the name, it was just an energy.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. That's it. We've done it. Speaking of, you're doing another, how long have you been doing which we can see in the background, the Little School of Big Change? How long have you been doing that for?
Yes. Almost 3 years. This is our seventh or eighth time I've led the 6-week course.
Awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yes. So it is a 6-week immersion into this understanding. I just call it this understanding, but whatever labels, they don't matter. But we really kind of walk through who we are, how our experience works in all kinds of ways. A lot of people come in the school with habits, anxiety, or something that they want to change, coming off addictions, like something that they want to feel more freedom around. But people also just come in because they're interested or they want to be in this conversation a lot. And over 6 weeks, I do 2 90-minute calls every week, and we have a private forum, and there's just tons of support and interaction, and it's really awesome.
And I will put a link, and I have access to the back end, and it is one thing I have to tell you, Amy, is how professional it is, how it's easy to navigate, and you really, this is like your baby, and I can tell, and I really appreciate that. So
yeah, thank you.
And you're going to be, and I'm going to be at the 3P. What is it? This is.
We couldn't get that. We made we made a video the other day, and I got the name of the conference wrong.
Yeah, that's right. We had to redo it.
I still don't even know what it is. The principles. It's not the 3 principles. It's the principles of addiction recovery, I think.
Yes.
Something like
3precovery.com. I'll post a link to both of those. So if you guys are interested in her upcoming program, I'll send you a link. And if you guys want to dive deep into how the principles have helped with recovery and addiction, I'll send a link to that. So we will do that.
That's going to be a great conference. I mean, it has us, but it has all kinds of other people that are sharing this in all kinds of ways. And, with caretakers and in this kind of center and like the Malibu kind of centers and like the more grassroots kind of nonprofit center, like all over. I mean, from every angle of recovery and coming at it from this brand new paradigm.
Yeah, and I was telling Amy the last time we talked that I'm actually more excited to sit as an audience member and listen to all the other people that are going to be speaking.
Yeah.
So, and also for someone said, I won't be able to make it. I wish I could be there. You can also do it virtually, just so you know. That has just recently been added to the website. So if you want to join us, you can do it virtually. Besides that, I will put in the links. Thank you so much for everyone that joined us, Miriam and everybody else, Arthur and everyone else that jumped on and asked questions. You guys are awesome. That's why this kind of conversations are awesome, because of you guys. And Amy, you're the best. And so thank you again for jumping on here. And this was like a different kind of energy today. I liked it.
Yeah,
it was cool.
Too.
It was not I don't know what it was.
Like, see, it's kind of to Arthur's, like we were saying with Arthur, it's like, who the heck knows what we're going to talk about? I don't know. Let's just see where it goes, see what happens. But
totally.
I love it. It's fun.
I agree. And with that, you guys.
Thank you for having me. And thank you guys for your questions and for being here.
Absolutely. Maybe we'll do round, I think, is it 3 or 4 at some point again. In the meantime, love you all, and I'll see you in the group. If you have any more questions, she's around. She's in our group. If you guys had some thoughts or ideas you missed, yeah. She's always available, so you guys can contact her and reach her. So thank you again.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Bye, you guys.